On the first problem, notice that we only have a v squared. So therefore we can complete this equation by solving by taking the square roots of both sides. So I'm going to isolate the v squared on the left hand side. So the first operation that I would do would be to add 5 to both sides. So we have 2v squared equals negative 6. Then we will divide by 2. Once I have isolated the v squared, I will take the square root of both sides. So when you take the square root of v squared, you are left with v equals, and then make sure that you put the plus and minus since you are taking the square root. To simplify the square root of negative 3, we can separate that as a negative 1 times 3. We have learned that the value of the square root of negative 1 is the imaginary number I, and square root of 3 cannot be broken down any farther. So therefore our answer is I times the square root of 3. On the second one, notice that we have an x squared and an x in the same problem. So our goal is to make this into a perfect square trinomial where both the first term and the last term are perfect squares. So since we are going to find the zeros, my first step is to set this problem equal to 0. Then I will move the 8 to the other side by subtracting the 8. And I will leave a blank for where that last term should become a perfect square. The shortcut to find out what perfect square this would be, we would take the middle term and divide it by 2. So half of 4 is 2, and then we will square that number. 2 squared is 4. Make sure what you add to one side, you add to the other side. Now this is a perfect square trinomial. This is a perfect square of x, and this is a perfect square of 2. The method to check the middle term is to take 2 times these two terms. And as you can see, 2 times 2x is 4x. So therefore I can factor this into x plus 2 squared, and then the right hand side is now equal to negative 4. Again, to get rid of a square, we will take the square root of both sides. So we have x plus 2 equals plus or minus, and then the square root of negative 4 actually breaks down to a negative 1 times a positive 4. Well, the square root of negative 1 is I, and the square root of 4 is 2. So I get a plus or minus 2i. Our last step is to get x by itself by subtracting 2. So our final answer is x equals negative 2 plus or minus 2i. This is a complex number. I like to write the real part of the number in the front and the imaginary part in the back.